exciting to actually see this come together and the realization of bodies in chairs, people in the room, community together. Thank you so very much for being here tonight. My name is Jessica Green, and I'm here to welcome you to a year of courageous conversations, in which together we explore how to foster greater inclusion and belonging in our community. I'm Jessica Green, your co-host for the series, and along with Zina Jacques, Claire Nelson, and our Courageous Conversations team, we want to thank you for responding to the call and are honored that you are here. So, we ordered a tornado drill last week, or last month. You ready for the fire drill now? Connor actually came prepared with an alarm, just so that we could practice getting closer together. Welcome back to those of you who are returning, having braved the first session, Defining Courage. And a warm welcome to those of you who are just embarking with tonight's session, Practicing Mindfulness. Should anyone wish to watch last month's presentation, you can find all of our resources, including videos of the sessions, online at courageousconversations.us. Please feel free to share and forward with interested or curious friends, family, and colleagues. While we are capturing the presentation portions of the sessions, we want to assure you that for the sake of privacy, these are the only parts of the evening that are recorded. Further honoring one another and in an effort to create space for honest sharing, we ask that as individuals in the room share their stories, that you please treat their information as sacred and let it remain with you upon leaving. Also, we ask for phones to be switched off or to at least remain on silent as we practice our grounding virtues, which ask us to be present with one another. I will be in the corner texting, though, while you're practicing that. So producing this series has been a true team effort, and we would be remiss not to acknowledge Barrington's White House, Barrington Area Library, Be Strong Together, Barrington Area Community Foundation, BMO Harris Wealth Management, Sue and Rich Padula, Kim Duchessois, and Urban Consulate for their partnership on this journey. Registration for the 2020 portion of the sessions is open on our website. We hope that you will come along for the entire journey, so we encourage you to please register now before all the seats are taken. Speaking of entire journey, while this series has been designed so that each session can stand alone, it is part of a generative arc. At our launch event last May, we invited those who already knew they wanted to experience the entire series to apply to be a Courage Fellow. These fellows have committed to attend all 10 sessions in the year, and they have also committed to convening between sessions to go deeper on the subjects together. Our first fellows meeting last month was led by Sam Adams-Lanham, Barrington Area Library's Community Engagement Librarian. Sam will soon share with you a bit more about the fellows before we begin. So last month, Dr. Erin Reeves gracefully led us through an exploration on how we process fear and courage. Tonight, here to pick up where we left off, is Dr. Reeves' colleague, Dr. Krista Robinson-Lyles. Dr. Robinson-Lyles carries over 26 years of experience providing consulting, research, facilitation, teaching, and coaching services to academic and corporate clients. She is committed to creating positive, healthy, and sustainable learning and working cultures. Dr. Robinson-Lyles' expertise is diverse in range, including developing strong curricular programs for elementary, secondary, and university students and faculty, as well as establishing effective strategies for the manifestation of equity and wellness in academic and corporate environments. In the expanse of her career, she has served as a classroom teacher, building administrator, and university instructor, in addition to coaching and consulting in the areas of literacy, equity, and mindfulness. She has coached more than 100 professionals, delivered various presentations, facilitated numerous workshops, and conducted and published action research. Dr. Robinson-Lyles works with Dr. Reeves at Nextions, a Chicago-based research and advisory firm that offers a new way of seeing and doing leadership and inclusion. And last but certainly not least, tonight we have our convener-in-chief, Dr. Reverend Zina Jacques, lead pastor of Barrington's Community Church and co-host of this series. She is here to set the stage for our practice tonight. Now here's Sam. Thanks, Sam.
Hi, everyone, and thank you. My name is Sam. I am the Community Engagement Librarian at the Barrington Area Library. I'm a member of the Advisory Board for Courageous Conversations, and mostly I am the facilitator for the Courageous Conversations Fellowship. Someone at my table, just when I was pulling out my notes, said, "Oh, are you leading this?" And I was like, "No, I don't have a PhD like all the other people." So she said, "Oh, you're doing the elevator speech." And I was like, "Yes, that's a good way of describing it." So the people involved in these sessions are from varying backgrounds with different perspectives and their own passion for this process. But one thing we all have in common is the hope that the time and the work that we invest, we hope that that work makes a difference, that it opens each of us to learning from others' experiences so that we can come to a deeper understanding of how others see and experience the world. But how do we know if courageous conversations are, in fact, accomplishing those goals? So this is where the idea for the cohort was formed. A cohort was convened to help answer that question. The fellows commit to attending every speaker session and extra small group sessions and to sharing what they learn as they go. We are a diverse group within the fellowship, ages 15 to 85, a variety of abilities and political, religious, and socioeconomic backgrounds. May I ask the fellows, I was about to call you my fellows, my fellow fellows, can I have you please raise your hands? So you can take a look around. Yeah, they're a great group. I'm very excited. So, the fellow cohort is made possible by a grant from the Barrington Area Community Foundation. We are very, very grateful for their support. During the course of the year, we, among several others, will share our experiences with you. You can read the emails that will be coming to you, visit the website, or follow Courageous Conversations on Instagram to see some of the things that we're learning. Thank you very much.
Patience? It's right in the center of the virtues. Patience? Yes, patience. You could have been anywhere in the world tonight, but you chose to come here. You chose to suspend certainty and engage in learning. You chose to dive into the deeper part of the pool rather than stay at the shallow end. You chose to acknowledge that journey is ongoing and that destinations are not all they're cracked up to be. You chose to enter a process that has as its goal transformation. But the transformation starts here. No transformation outside these walls can occur till it happens within these individual bodies. You've come tonight to engage in a process of transformation. And you know what happens in the chrysalis of a butterfly? It goes to goo. The caterpillar completely dissolves. If you cut it open, it's nothing but liquid. Every membrane, every one of those little hairy legs, all those bright colors, those antennae, they melt down into an amino acid rich soup. Ew is right. See, this is your fault from last month but here's the thing. The caterpillar has in it something called imaginal cells. And the imaginal cells know from the time it's a caterpillar that it's meant to be a butterfly. It's not going to crawl, it's going to soar. It's not going to eat bugs, it's going to sip nectar. This process is not easy. Some of us are going to melt down in the goo. And those who are willing to be gooey are going to get the most out of it. because your imaginal cells are already there. They were there from your birth, before your birth. They know who we are meant to be as individuals and as a force for transformation in our world. But patience. If you cut open the chrysalis too early, you kill it. When it's ready to come out, if you cut open the chrysalis, you know the story. The butterfly can't work the water out of its wings and it dies. Patience. None of us in this room get to set the time horizon for that generative arc that will change truly who we are. Patience. First, with yourself. You chose to be here, courageous. You chose to go on this journey, courageous. You chose to kind of enter the chrysalis, courageous. Be patient. Practice patience. Practice each of these virtues, because as we practice, as we give ourselves that space and time to become who we were always meant to be on that journey, the world will change, because you're in it, and wherever you are and whatever you touch. But it's a journey, and it requires patience. So be kind to yourself and those at the table, particularly when you get gooey. Now, we would be remiss if we did not acknowledge that today is among the holiest on the calendar for our Jewish brothers and sisters. Yom Kippur, Yom Day Kippur, atonement. But underneath that word atonement is also repentance. And in the Greek, I've got all kinds of clergy around that will keep me honest. In the Greek, you took Greek, I did not. In the Greek, repentance is metanoia. And here's what it means. Turn and go the other way. That the repentance is a U-turn sign. And some of the things we will discover tonight and through the course of this journey will cause us to turn and go another way. Patience as we make this journey together. You are so welcomed in this place. You are so needed in this place. Let's get gooey. Dr. Lyles, Robinson Lyles.
I don't know who put me after Zena, but I don't appreciate it. I do hope you're ready to get gooey, because we will. My name is Krista Robinson Lyles, and I have to tell you that I hope you're ready to laugh a little, to be a little serious, to maybe get out of your comfort zone. I am an elementary teacher at heart. I have done many other things, but we're going to do some silly stuff, and we're going to do some serious things, all in the name of continuing what Dr. Reeves started around moving from fear to courage through courageous conversations. So if you haven't seen that video, please watch it. She does a masterful job of talking about what's at the root of fear. And I'm actually thinking right now that when my mother watches this video, she's going to be very upset if I don't start by thanking some people. So let me back up and say thank you so much to the organizing committee for having the vision to have this year of courageous conversations, to really have the fortitude to figure out how to scaffold it so it makes sense, so that one thing builds on another, to make this space so welcoming. I couldn't ask for anything better, and I'm glad that you're here. I also have to thank Dr. Reeves. I've known her for a long time. And what she did to you last time she was here, she did to me. She asked me one day what I was afraid of. And I said, oh, heights. She said, no, you're not. Yes, I am. I'm afraid of heights. She's like, no, you're not. Okay, what am I afraid of? Exactly. I was like, well, that's what I said in the first place. I'm afraid of falling. But having someone really push and get specific, right? Intentional and specific about our fears and where they sit. And so tonight, I'm grateful to her also for all that she's done and all that she's been, and it's been a privilege to work with her. So we're going to talk tonight about mindfulness and about how that can help us really move into conversations that we might otherwise avoid. And those conversations are not always easy. Mindfulness will show us how to take a pause so that we can find some space in between the stimulus and our response. So, show of hands, if you had something on your mind on the way here today, you were thinking about something you needed to do tomorrow. Anybody preoccupied with that? Okay. Show of hands if you were on the way here and you were thinking about something that happened yesterday or the day before. You were ruminating about something else. Okay. Last time. Show of hands if you left your home or your work and someone was demanding your attention. So let me tell you what my kids did to me, and then we'll keep going. I have to say this. So I'm leaving the house, right? And they're 17 and 14. Sorry, teens, just have to say this. So they said, Mom, you're going to be home really late tonight, right? And I said, yeah, it's a long day. I had a presentation this morning. I'm going to be pretty late. You're going to be pretty tired when you get home? And I thought, oh, they're so sweet. No. So I said, yes, I'm going to be pretty tired. I'll be wiped out when I get home. And both of them, well, can you help me edit my paper when I get home? And can you check my project, right? So I had a lot on my mind as I arrived here today, too. And so I want us to actually take a moment to do some practice getting grounded and clearing space so that we can get gooey, so that we can get right into the heart of it, because we all come with different things that we're thinking about, different things that are preoccupying us. We may have been caregivers for someone. We may have been working on different projects, whatever it is. So I'm going to ask you to get very comfortable in your seats, as comfortable as possible. Both feet flat on the floor. Feel free to close your eyes or to have a soft gaze somewhere, which does not mean somebody else's eyes right now, right? Soft gaze elsewhere. And just put one hand on your heart. And please let me know if you cannot hear me, by the way. One hand on your heart, one hand on your abdomen. And just sit like that for a few seconds. Just notice your breathing. Don't do anything to change it right now. Just notice the beating of your heart. Is it rapid? Is it the way it always is? Do you even notice it most times? Notice your breath. Where in your body do you notice your breathing? Is it your chest, maybe? Is it your abdomen? And you don't have to do anything to change it right now. Now, shift your awareness to your feet. Wiggle your toes if you have room in your shoes. I hope you do. You can even flex and point your foot. Just notice. Maybe rotate your ankles a little bit. Say hello to your calves if you haven't said hello to them all day. Shift your awareness to your knees and to your thighs. Notice if there's any tension anywhere there. Go ahead and give your thighs a good squeeze, your glutes, a good squeeze, and then release. Do that again and release any tension. Squeeze and release. And now shift your awareness to your hand on your abdomen and just notice your breathing for a moment. Again, we're not doing anything to change that. We're just noticing. Shift your awareness to your heart. Notice your heartbeat. How about your shoulders? Are they tight or tense? And if so, go ahead and squeeze them to your ears. Gentle but firm squeeze and then release. And do that again. Just squeeze and release. You might not have done that all day long. Shift your awareness to your arms and your elbows. Your wrists, maybe circle them a little bit. You'll probably hear my bones creaking, popping. What about your fingers? Stretch and squeeze and close. Shift your awareness to your throat. Just swallow a couple times. Things we take for granted in our bodies that we really can pay attention to. And now let your awareness travel to your jaw and notice if you're clenching your teeth maybe. Move your tongue around in your mouth. Shift your awareness to your eyebrows. This is where I hold all my tension. My eyebrows are always furrowed. So maybe raise them really high and then bring them back to resting. And finally, shift your awareness to your scalp. Yes, your scalp. Do you feel a breeze? Is there tightness or tension anywhere? And now focus on your breathing once more. Notice if there's a difference, maybe now than a few minutes ago. Take your own inhale and exhale, and then we're going to do a collective inhale together. So if everybody inhales to the count of 3, 1, 2, 3, and exhale, 3, 2, 1. And just stay like that for another couple of seconds, noticing your breathing. If your eyes are closed, go ahead and open them. You can place your hands back on your lap or wherever you have them. And on your table in front of you is a reflection sheet. We're going to use this throughout the night to work together. Overachievers do not fill out that whole sheet right now. I was teaching, I know it happens. Right now, I want you to just focus on the first question at the top that asks you about why you're here. What brings you here tonight? So go ahead, take about 2 minutes. You can jot single words, entire sentence or phrase. What brings you here tonight? In a moment, you'll have a chance to share that with other people, but I want to bring us back to what we're going to talk about tonight and tell you a little bit about how I facilitate. So I will intersperse some mini lectures, if you will, along with some time for individual reflection and also some time to talk to people. So if you are an introvert like me, you can groan now. Whenever I'm in a workshop and they say turn and talk, I'm like, oh, seriously, can't I just listen? Not going to happen tonight, but there'll be opportunities for you to do some individual reflection. And we'll also do some group thinking together and sharing out. So last time, let's see if I can get this to work. When Dr. Reese talked, she talked about intentions and how the need to be specific. And so some of the practice we'll do tonight will involve looking at mindfulness. It's not about being perfect. It's not about creating a perfect life. It's not even about pretending that challenges aren't going to exist. It's about how we choose to be in the moment in the midst of those intense moments. There's a real power in what you're building here. There's a real sense of commitment when you have shared language and a shared framework and a common understanding, even if you all have differences of opinion, but you're here together to do that work. And so mindfulness honors that. And I want to make a link between what I know the best about education and mindfulness. So stick with me. I'm going to give you an example. So one of the roles I've played for a long time in education is as a literacy consultant, which basically means I'm supporting teachers in teaching kids how to read and write. At the basic level, in kindergarten and first grade, we have beginning readers. And that means that children are learning what it means to have accurate reading, fluent reading. And the idea is that they can comprehend what they're reading. So what it might look like in a classroom is for a teacher to sit with the child and listen to the child read aloud. And when we do that, we're listening for miscues that they make. We're not trying to catch them doing something wrong. We're trying to figure out where they are, to know where they are and start with where they are. So some of the miscues that beginning readers make include substitutions. So there are times when they substitute one word for another. Or omissions, when they completely leave out a word. Or insertions, when they actually insert a word that's not even there. When they make those miscues, one or two may or may not change the meaning of the text. But if they make those multiple miscues, it changes the comprehension that they can get from the text. So they miss the author's purpose, And what often happens is when their attention is called to those miscues, children can become defensive. They can decide they don't want to read. They can be embarrassed. They can completely refuse to read or not enjoy it at all or not engage. And so one of the points I make to teachers is let's make sure that the kids understand that they don't have to agree with what they're reading. They can completely disagree with the author's purpose or intent, but they're going to miss comprehension if they don't know the miscues. And it's not good enough for the teacher to always point out those miscues, right? They have to become independent at doing that. So you might see where I'm going with this. If we're talking about courageous conversations, and we're talking about starting, as Zena said, with what's inside, we've got to learn what our miscues are. We have to learn to pause enough to notice when we're inserting our own experiences and our own ideas and beliefs into a conversation, and where that's changing the course of the conversation. We have to understand when we're omitting someone else's story intentionally or unintentionally, still has an impact. And we have to understand when we're substituting what we know or what we think we know for what someone else is trying to communicate. And it's not even about broad agreement. It's not that we have to all agree all the time. I would love that. I'm conflict averse. But that's not the point so much as that we can hear other people because it might really change something. Hearing someone else might really allow us to see humanity in a way that we couldn't. And we can agree that we're not agreeing, but we're not having ourselves in this place that's so divisive that we can't get out of it. So there's something to be learned from beginning readers. I want to show you this question that the Courageous Conversations team, I've given you a new name, by the way, has put forward as one of the guiding principles or guideposts, I'll say, for their year of conversations. And so Dr. Reeves started talking about this with fear, right, and how it can keep us from acting courageously. We've got to get really clear about what that fear is. Mindfulness can help us embrace the courage to ask not only what kind of humanity are we creating, but who belongs, right? One of the things my mother always says that I love is none of us are getting out of here without some fear, some pain, some disappointing times in our lives. But we also hope that we can matter, that we belong somewhere, and that people listen to us. So tonight we're going to practice some of those things, and we'll gradually deepen the practice. Reverend Angel Kyoto Williams has this beautiful piece about love and justice not being two, right? So, and love is not about romantic love in this sense. It's about really love for humanity, love for other people's ability to breathe. And so we can either choose to let fear define truth, or we can let love pave the way to truth, right? So there's this collective lift that we're distinguishing intention from impact, that we're unlearning conditioned fear, and that we're concerned about ourselves as well as the collective. So I'm going to ask you to turn to a partner in just a moment, but I've learned from teaching if I say go now, you won't listen, so hold on. You're going to have an opportunity to go through a series of questions with a partner. Someone at your table can just be someone next to you. And you're going to introduce yourself to that person by telling them your name and why you're here tonight. So go ahead, turn to a partner, someone next to you, tell them your name, take turns talking about why you're here, one person at a time. So you're going to have a chance to keep talking in just a moment. And actually, the second question is, please don't start yet, because there's two parts. The second question is, what do courageous conversations mean to you? What does that mean to you? And then, how does it look, sound, feel? Now, that might seem weird. But if you're thinking about a conversation that would be courageous to you, doesn't matter what the context or what the topic is, what would it look like or sound like or feel like? And your answer may be very different from your partner, and that is fine. But what I need you to do in addition to talking is take a note card from the center of the table, one per pair, and record some of your ideas about what a courageous conversation means. I'm going to give you 5 minutes this time, and then I'll ring the chime. So the first two questions only. What does it mean? How does it look, sound, or feel? And record some ideas on your index card. Okay? Starting to work. You're getting the hang of it. I'm going to give you a chance to have one more portion of the conversation. And I also would like for you to record some thoughts. You don't have to record everything. But the last part of the questions is, how can we all benefit from courageous conversations? That's not a trick question. So, how can we all benefit from courageous conversations? So have that conversation in pairs. You have about 2 minutes for that. And please record something on your note cards. I will ask a few people to share out in just a moment, so if that helps. So 2 minutes. I have to tell you, I'm growing into this. I'm learning this because I don't love talking to people who disagree with me. I don't even know that I'm always right. I just don't always want to hear what they have to say, right? Just saying. But more than that, the challenge for me is when what someone has to say that I completely disagree with feels hurtful or dangerous to the people I care most about, right? And so that fear, right, about protection and about that's at the root of a lot of the conversations that I hesitate to have. And in the work that I do, one of the things that I have had to encounter a lot, which is part of the reason I embrace mindfulness so much, is having people challenge me, particularly when I'm leading conversations around racial equity and racial justice. And so I work with a lot of faculty at universities, and I'm generalizing on purpose, but many love to tell me what they know, as if I don't know some things, right? And my acknowledgement is we all know something. But I have often people come up to me in the middle of a workshop, for example, and say, "You don't know this, you got this wrong." I'm not listening to you when you do that. I can't, right? Or, "You don't know what you're talking about." And so it's really about helping people. Before we even get to any content, it's about how do we see other people and have conversations. We are going to disagree, right? So one of the things that really helps with that is this idea that it really matters if we can take a pause. Just a millisecond of a pause between stimulus and response, right? So Viktor Frankl had it absolutely right. You may have seen this quote before, but I love this because it is just that need to take a step back and understand that we can react, which our bodies are conditioned to do, and or we can respond, and we always have options, even when they don't seem great. We always have an option to how we respond. So I want to just also tell you something else that you might already know, but just stick with me for a moment. So when our bodies perceive that something is a threat, right, you probably already know what happens. Lots of things happen in our bodies, and they're reactions. So our body's trying to protect us, and the amygdala gets any kind of sensory input, and it automatically goes to work. It works beautifully, too well sometimes, right? So you might start sweating. You might feel your heart racing. You might have much more shallow breathing. All these things happen when your body feels threatened, even if it's not a real physical threat. So conversations can feel threatening. We can avoid them. We can lash out at people. All these things happen to protect ourselves. And so I love showing this slide to kids because this is the most basic way to explain it. So when there's sensory input and the amygdala automatically goes into fight, flight, or freeze mode, then it shuts down any engagement with the prefrontal cortex, the front part of our brain, that really helps us with reasoning and emotions and putting that together with memories and a response. Conversely, when we have that pause in between the amygdala receiving the sensory input and the prefrontal cortex gets a chance to do the work to help us have this balanced response. So I want to show you a video in a moment that kind of brings together mindfulness, but this is where it's all coming together about what mindfulness means. It's really about the wise mind, so that the prefrontal cortex does get engaged, so that we can mitigate our fears and be really aware of them, but also try to work through them to understand what we're really most afraid of in this conversation. It can help us be calm, to soothe us, to unlearn things that we might have learned, didn't even realize were conditioned fears, and it can help us be like that beginning reader. We can realize where we're making miscues. So where in this conversation, and I'm making assumptions about someone else, where do I have biases, right? Where am I inserting myself into someone else's story and I'm not really listening? They're talking, I don't want to hear it, and I'm shutting down, right? So nothing you say is going to convince me otherwise. That's how I do sometimes. It also supports regulation of our body and awareness. So the breathing that we did in the beginning, the way that we did the grounding and the clearing, I got you right into practices right away, because it can help regulate the body. And the moment you take a breath, you'll hear this a lot when people talk about mindfulness. The moment you can take a breath, even a quick breath, it regulates your body in a different way. It calms down your nervous system. It stops pumping the cortisol and the adrenaline, and it gives you a chance to have a response and not just react. Okay, so the video, I did it, worry. I did it, Connor, yay. Connor told me this might be a little complicated. So this is a brief video, and it explains mindfulness. Let me give you a couple caveats though. One thing it says about mindfulness in the beginning is that it's all about thinking, or that's how I interpreted what it said, and it's not. It's not just about that, it's about full body awareness. There's also a portion of the video that I'm going to stop before we get to for time that talks about mindfulness as if it's only about meditation. And again, that's not true either. So we'll get into that in a moment. So if I do this correctly, okay. Is it loud? Thank you.
You may have heard this word mindfulness. It's become something of a buzz phrase of late. I'm going to give you one simple, serviceable definition, which is this. Mindfulness is the ability to know what's happening in your head at any given moment without getting carried away by it. Imagine how useful this could be. Just as an example, driving down the road and somebody cuts you off in traffic. How do you normally react? I think most of us, we normally react by having a thought, which is, I'm pissed. And then what happens next? You immediately, habitually, reflexively inhabit that thought. You actually become pissed. There's no buffer between the stimulus and your reaction. With just a little bit of mindfulness, in that same situation, you might notice my chest is buzzing, my ears are turning red, I'm having a starburst of self-righteous thoughts, I'm getting angry. But you don't necessarily have to act on it and chase that person down the road, screaming at them with your kids in the back of the car thinking you've gone nuts. Now, you might be thinking, don't I need to get angry sometimes? Aren't I justified? I would say yes, but probably not as much as you think. The proposition here is not that you should be rendered by mindfulness into some lifeless, non-judgmental blob. The proposition is that you should learn how to respond wisely to things that happen to you, rather than just reacting blindly. And that, my friends, is a superpower. How do you get it? The way to get it is through meditation.
It's not the only way to get it. I love, this video cracks me up, how he says, you're just pissed. Like, that's not how I look when I'm pissed, I'm just telling you. But like the non-expression. So it's essentially, everything else that they said in the video I think is great. That it's not about saying that you should never be angry or that things shouldn't really enrage us. We should be upset when someone's being hurt, right? That we shouldn't feel these things and that we just never have emotions. That's not it. It's about how we recognize the emotions and what we choose to do with them. And I'm not claiming it's always easy. So let me see if I can get this back, Connor, I think. I might take your job. Don't count on it. No. I wouldn't even try. It would not go well. I love Connor. So I always tell people, I often start with this because it's really important to distinguish what mindfulness is and what it's not. And don't worry, we're going to get into some practice in just a moment. This is the mini lecture portion. So mindfulness is about present time awareness. And whenever I hear that, I think, what the heck does that mean? It is really being aware and paying attention to what's happening in the moment. It's not that the past doesn't matter and that the future, it's not to never plan for the future. It's just when something happens, how aware can you be of what's happening? It's not only a religious or spiritual practice, but some people really, that's the first thing that comes to mind. I do need to honor that it has roots in Buddhist tradition. It has roots in Greek heritage and tradition. It has roots in Native American traditions, but that's not what it has to be. So if you're spiritual or religious, you may see some similarities in the way that you practice mindfulness. Right? There may be chanting or other things or just being aware in ways that fit, but it doesn't mean it has to be. Mindfulness is not about trying to convert you into any religion or any sense of spirituality. It's not what it is. It's also not just meditation or yoga. So people often say to me, I don't meditate, I go to sleep, or I'm not into yoga. There is mindfulness meditation, that is a thing, but there's lots of kinds of meditation, and they're not all about awareness in the moment. Yoga does use mindfulness to help you push through. I do yoga. It does help you push through those tough poses. So mindfulness is engaged in yoga, but you don't have to do yoga to be mindful, okay? Just to be clear. It is about being non-judgmental. So if you catch yourself, you're aware of the fact that you're making a judgment or you are angry about something. It's not about shaming yourself. It's not what it's about either. Can't see over there. So it's also about being curious about the contrast between you and someone else when we talk about conversations. So trying to be curious, as I think you said, about what someone else is thinking or believing or what their background is, trying to get to know their story, and that's not always easy. Self-regulation versus ignoring reality. It's not about pretending you don't have emotions or you don't react to something. It's not about being self-centered either. You should center yourself. You have to get to know yourself, which I'll talk about in a minute, but it's not about ignoring other people. It's not about perfection, and it's certainly not a one and done. It does not happen 1 minute you're mindful and then you're mindful forever, right? It doesn't work that way. It would be nice. Let me give you an example of mindfulness on a personal level. So my son is 17, and he is an amazing kid. I mean, he loves school. He really does. He loves learning, and if he's not learning something at school, he'll go home and he'll figure it out. He is great at study skills. He manages his time. He's awesome that way. He absolutely sucks at doing his chores. We have this ongoing thing where, you need to do these. He knows he needs to do them by 5 o'clock on Sunday. I try to give him a little window, have them done by 5 on Sunday, and I won't bother you. So maybe a year ago, we were having this engagement, I'll call it, about his chores. And his thing to say, which just annoys me, he knows, you don't understand. That's his answer for everything. And so he said it one day, though, and I had a different way. I really stopped and listened to him. And I thought, okay, what don't I understand? He said, you don't understand what it's like to be a kid. And I was thinking, I was a kid, 35, 45, whatever it was. Like it really hit me. Yes, I was a kid at one point. And that's getting further and further away. But what I realized was what he's living through now, times are really different. Right? Social media, lots of things. What he has to do, he's applying to colleges right now, which I can't wait for that to be done. That's a mess. But what he has to do now to be college ready is not what I had to do to be college ready. He needs to, and he is taking all AP classes, all honors classes. He needs to work. He needs to be in community service. He needs, there's all these things. I didn't have to do all of that. And so the minute I stopped and said, I actually don't get it. He thought that meant he didn't have to do chores. You should see the look on his face. Because he was like, but he had this look, it changed the intensity of the conversation for us. It didn't mean he doesn't have to do chores. But he actually started laughing. Because he's like, what, you mean I'm right? That's not what I'm saying. But I'm just saying, I agree. You're kind of right. But it really did change the intensity so that he could laugh a little bit, and we could talk about the fact that he's going to do the chores, but that when he doesn't do them, it means everybody in the house is doing them for him, right? And we're picking up that slack, and we have a responsibility. He's better at it. I wish I could tell you this is a total success story. He does them better, but it does change it. So when I'm talking to him about them, he gets that giggle, like, okay, I know she's listening, right? I'm trying. I'm not always great at it. But that's just an example of just being in the moment, trying to really soften enough to say it's not going to change the situation. He's doing his chores till he leaves the house. But for me to try to understand where he's coming from and to just say, wait a minute, I really don't know it all. I do know some things about being a kid. I know some things about being an adult that he doesn't yet know. But there's a lot I don't know, right? So it just changed the moment for us. So Audre Lorde talks about this. I'm going to make a generalization that in this country in particular, we are very fixated, again, I'm generalizing, on rational thought and how people are smart when they can rationalize and when they can be analytical. And what often gets left aside is how much emotional intelligence matters. And so The reason that happens often is because we don't understand, and I'm including myself, our core needs when we're in a conversation with someone that's contentious. We might forget that we have core needs and so do other people. And so these are some universal core needs. So in that moment, talking to my son, he really wanted me to see him. He wanted me to see that he's working really hard at his studies. I don't have to tell him to study, I have to tell him to take a break. Right? He wasn't doing other stuff he was supposed to do. But he wanted to be seen and he wanted to be appreciated. And it did change the intensity of the conversation. So one of the things that is really important, I'm going to bring this all together for you in a little bit, or with you, but knowing ourselves is one of the most critical parts of being mindful. Really understanding how we may be making miscues because we don't know what we really need. So stopping and pausing for a minute, just long enough to say, wait, what is it I really need? I'm really feeling unappreciated. Or like when I'm in a workshop and someone tells me that they know more than me in a way that I feel affrontive, I feel like my status is being challenged, even if it's not. And maybe that's my ownership, right? It's me just feeling that. It's not this person at all. So what is it? And then trying to figure out in that conversation what the other person's core needs might be. You might not know. But having this awareness that they have core needs too can change the tenor of the conversation as well. So I'm going to come back to this in a moment. Right now I'm going to pause because I've done enough talking. And I'm going to ask you to look at your reflection sheet. There's a middle portion that I don't want you to start on yet. I just want you to notice where that portion is. In the middle, I'm going to give you time to do a reflection about when you are able to, or what conversations, what topics cause you the most difficulty. Which ones would you rather avoid? And with whom do you usually have those conversations anyway? So there's a series of questions in the middle. You're reflecting on your own. If you need more room, turn it over on the back. Don't complete the questions on the back, but you can turn it over. I'm going to give you 3 or 4 minutes and I'll check in. Whatever thoughts come to mind, just that portion on the front. Time starts now. So in just a moment, I'm going to review some of the things we already talked about, but I want to show you an acronym, 2 acronyms, that really help me remember to be mindful. So RAD, love. Now the literacy coach in me has a problem with calling this RAD. So when 2 owls go walking, the first one does the talking. Does anybody remember that? But we're going to call it RAD just so it's easier to remember. But I don't really honestly remember where I heard this the first time, but it's resonated with me, and I may not have it exactly like the person I heard it from. But realize, acknowledge, accept, and do. So realizing that you have particular emotions or feelings. They're going to occur, that's just it. We're not trying to ignore them or suppress them. Acknowledging what those emotions and feelings are, maybe even naming them. I feel nervous right now, I feel angry. Not sure what I'm feeling, but somewhere in my body, my heart's racing, right? I feel uncomfortable, I'm sweating. The third part is accepting that those feelings and emotions are what they are. You're not judging yourself, I'm a bad person. It's not about a good, bad binary. It's just, it is. And accepting that. And then do could be do nothing. It could be just rest and awareness. That's what it is right now. Or it might be making a choice from a range of options. Okay, so responding versus reacting. So realize, acknowledge, accept, do. It doesn't mean you accept the situation in terms of what the other person said. You accept that you have these feelings in the moment and you have options, always. Love is another one. You could use them together, you could use them in one or the other. But the first one is let your breath soften. So when we talk about mindfulness, you'll almost always hear people talk about returning to the breath. Again, because it regulates your body. So letting your breath soften, especially when you recognize that you're breathing heavily or quickly. Being open to the feelings. So yes, this is what I feel. It might suck to feel this way right now, but I feel it and I'm not trying to act like I don't and suppress it. There's a wonderful book, author's last name is Vander Kolk, The Body Keeps the Score. If you've not read that book, it is powerful because it talks about what happens when we're not mindful. That's not all he talks about. But he talks about how trauma lives in the body and what happens when we're not expressing our emotions or in touch with them, among other things. It's really powerful. The V is for verify your needs. So you check in with your core needs, right? So what I'm feeling this way. Am I nervous that I'll be embarrassed? Am I not having autonomy? Someone's taking my decision away from me? Do I feel like my family status is threatened? What is at the core of that? And then extend compassion. I'm working on this one. I am working on this one in difficult conversations. I'm trying. Compassion can be for yourself so that you're not being too hard on yourself like you're a horrible person, but you have these emotions, yes. You can extend compassion to someone else. And I say I'm working on this because when I'm talking to people with whom I diametrically opposed, sometimes the best thing I can do to stay in conversation is say, I realize they love their family as much as I love mine. That's as much as I can offer. Like I'm not agreeing with what you're saying. They love their family too, and that's why they're passionate about that. Just a little compassion, right? It can get me a little bit further in my ability to listen. So, rad love. So far, we started with some grounding and clearing practice, which you can use when you're in a conversation if you know you're about to enter a conversation or you're in the midst, you need to take a break. You can actually just be really present to your senses in the room, what's around you. You can do some clearing practice with breathing or a body scan. We did that right away. Knowing yourself is really important, so what are your core needs, right? Using rad love, either or both. And rad love helps us with self-regulation. If you have kids or grandkids or nieces or nephews or anyone in schools, there's a lot of talk about emotional regulation, right? And self-regulation right now, emotional learning. Essential questions, I haven't covered this yet, but how do I know? These are critical questions. When you're in the conversation with someone else and you're feeling triggered, how do I know that what I'm saying is whatever it is, or what they're saying, or what don't I know, right? So it's checking in with those miscues I talked about. And the yes and question. Yes, I'm feeling this, and, right, what are my responses, my options? And then gratitude and compassion. It can really help lessen the severity, the intensity of the moment. It doesn't change the fact that you're disagreeing, but it can change your response to it. So fear is a reaction. Courage is a decision. I want us to take a moment now, and I'm going to lead you through a guided visualization. So you can turn back to your table if it's helpful. You can choose to close your eyes or leave them open. It's up to you. You won't need a pen or pencil unless it's comfortable to have one in your hand. I invite you to put one hand on your abdomen again and one on your heart, if that's comfortable for you. And I'm going to guide you through this step by step. So I want you to recall a time when you were in the middle, well, not in the middle, sorry. Recall a time when you were in a difficult conversation, one that felt uncomfortable, one that you weren't pleased about navigating. Just recall that for a second. Think about where you were. Actually try to picture the physical environment. Maybe what sounds were around you. Maybe what you saw or what you were feeling in the room or the space. And also call to mind who was there. Who were you in conversation with? Now, think about the beginning of this conversation. How did it start? Was there a question? Was there a news bite? Was there an image? What started this conversation? As the conversation progressed, and you're in the midst of the conversation, what were you noticing in your body? Just think about that for a moment. Try to recall, what were you noticing in your body? Or did you notice what was happening in your body at the time? Try to think about what your core need was at that moment. Were you feeling like you were invisibilized? Were you feeling like your status was being questioned, or your role, your autonomy? Did you feel like you didn't belong, or maybe even unsafe, unappreciated? Now I want you to shift your awareness back to your feet for just a moment. Feel your toes and try to feel the fabric or the sole of your shoe underneath your toes. Actually wiggle your toes. What does that feel? Notice that. Feel the ball of your feet. Press them gently into your shoes, but firmly, and try to notice what that feels like. And now the arch of your foot. Actually press the arch as closely as you can to your shoe. Do you feel the fabric? Do you feel a bit of a breeze? What about the heel of your foot? Connect with the heel of your foot and notice what you feel. And now bring your attention to your breathing and back to the middle of this conversation, or you're right in the midst of it again. And see if you can determine what the other person's core need might have been. You don't have to know exactly. But can you imagine what their core need might have been? Where they may be feeling invisibilized, unappreciated, like their status or their role was questioned. Can you offer to yourself compassion for that moment, or gratitude? Maybe your gratitude is, I learned something in that moment, or I'm glad I'm not in that moment anymore. Or it's okay that I was angry, or that I was scared. Be compassionate with yourself about that moment. And can you possibly offer compassion, or maybe even gratitude, to the other person or people in that conversation? Even if it's, I'm glad I'm not talking to them anymore. Or I appreciate that that person could at least tell me what they thought. Or may they be well and on their way. Take a deep inhale and exhale on your own. One more deep inhale, one more deep exhale. If your eyes are closed, go ahead and open them again. So I offer the grounding with your feet because it's another practice you can use when you're in the middle of something really intense. It's small, but when you're in something really intense, the way to find a pause is to get grounded to the ground, to get connected, to really not divert your attention totally, but to just feel, I'm okay, I'm connected, I'm here. I'm not talking about physical threatening. I'm talking about conversations that feel uncomfortable, and just breathing or actually noticing your feet in the ground can lessen the intensity. So just for a moment, you can actually breathe, you can actually feel your body, and you become more aware of what's happening throughout your whole body. So it's another small thing that you can do. And the thing is, nobody has to notice, right? No one knows if you're doing that, if you need to appear calm. Okay, I'm gonna ask you to stand up and step back from your chairs for a moment, as much space as we have. Okay, I'm gonna ask you to do something silly. I'm just giving you a warning. And you all have to do it. Please. So I'm going to assume that most people have seen the Home Alone, at least one Home Alone movie. Is that true? Don't get scared. Say yes, you've seen it. Okay. If you have not seen Home Alone movies, is there someone brave enough to show the famous face that Macaulay Culkin makes? That's one. This one. Okay, so here's what's going to happen. You need to find a partner. The way you're going to find a partner for this next conversation is you're going to look down at your shoes, and when I say Home Alone, we're not doing it yet, we're just getting the directions. You're going to make the Home Alone face, and you're going to make eye contact with someone at your table, and that person becomes your partner. It's gooey, it's gooey. So everyone look down. Home Alone. You're such good listeners. Find a partner, sit next to that partner, and I'll give you directions. Make it quick. And I didn't do a very good job of that. I should have said someone at your table. That would have been easier. Okay, so here are your directions. You're going to spend just a few minutes in conversation with your new Home Alone buddy. And you're going to reflect back to the visualization I just led you through. You do not have to share the content of the conversation you were thinking about when I asked you to think about a time when it was difficult. But I do want you to share what you noticed in your body. Okay, so here are 3 things I want you to talk about so I don't have to interrupt you. You can write them down if you want. What were you noticing in your body during this conversation? So that's the first question for your team, your group. What might courage look like in that situation, or what did courage look like in that situation? So what did you notice in your body? What did courage look like, or what might it look like to you? Doesn't matter what anybody else thinks, okay? And then the last one is, what's one mindful practice that you can use, and I'm going to put up the ones we've used tonight, that might help you? Okay, so what did you notice in your body? What does courage look like in that situation, or could it look like? And what one mindful tool could you use? So I'm going to give you about 6 minutes for this. Make sure each person has a turn to talk, and if you run out of time to talk about all the questions, it's okay. Okay, so go ahead and start. Okay, everybody. I really love that you're talking and you're energized. It's awesome. And I'm going to ask you to stop. Just for a second. So there's so much richness. I tried not to come and listen in because it's private for you, but I'm just curious about how much engagement you're having. I love it. And I'm going to ask you to, we're actually coming close to the end of our session, so I'm going to ask us to thank our partners you just talked with, and then quickly move back to your seat. So thank your partner, quickly go back. So go ahead and take the note cards in the middle of your table, or take the note cards, place them in the middle of your table, please. And I need everybody to grab one of the long strips of white paper and a marker. All right, I'm gonna have to pull out the big. So one strip of paper and a marker, and then listen so you know what to do. So a friend taught me this a few years ago, and I absolutely love this activity. It's a great way to capture your thinking about whatever it is. So it's called the 6-word essay, and you may have seen it before. I like the way that she does it. So listen before you start writing. You're going to create your own 6-word essay. So 6 words about, let me find my question, how mindfulness can support courageous conversations. So the question is, don't write anything yet, how can mindfulness support courageous conversations? That's the question. You're going to respond in 6 words only, and the 6 words should be a coherent statement. You cannot use 5 words. You cannot use 7 words. And yes, people are going to get creative and use hyphens and all that nonsense that I didn't say. I know it. But a 6-word essay, how can mindfulness support courageous conversations? I want you to do that silently because you're going to have to listen for next set of directions. So go ahead. You have like 2 or 3 minutes. A 6-word essay. How can mindfulness support courageous conversations? So you're going to have to clear a portion of your table for this, maybe just one section, but you're now going to, with your table, create a poem. So you're going to, don't laugh, it works. You're going to put all of those essays together, vertically, have to always think about that, vertically, reading from top to bottom, in any order that makes the most coherent sense. Here's the thing. You're going to just lay them on the table first randomly, reading down, right, from top to bottom. And if you decide to move someone's, you need to ask them for permission. Is it okay if I move this here, right? So you're going to have a couple minutes as a table to have this discussion and make one poem out of all of the essays, and then we'll ask a few people to share. So go ahead and start. So clear the table as best you can, put them in order, make a poem. I have to tell you, I love that you all have just thrown yourselves into this, and I had you do goofy stuff, and I asked you to do lots of things, and you did it, and it's amazing. And what you came up with is really powerful, and I am using that t-shirt. I really am gonna make that into a t-shirt. So I wanna close us out with one final thing, one final way to kind of bring us together. And to do that, I'm gonna actually ask us to stand one more time if it's comfortable for you. If not, you can stay seated. We can do it seated too. And as you stand, I want to remind you about the beginning reader in all of us. So when we take notice of the miscues that we're making, I'm really good at pointing out other people's miscues when they are omitting or inserting or substituting something into my story and my experience. And I also have a responsibility to understand that in myself, and that's mindfulness, right? So keep the beginning reader in mind. And now I want you to face your table if you're not. And I invite you to, you can either put your hand on your heart if this is uncomfortable for you, or you can reach your right palm out with facing up. And your left palm out facing down. And the idea is that your right hand will go under the person's hand next to you without touching. I do not like when I touch people I don't know, I'm just saying. I freak out. Your left hand should go over the person's hand next to you, just close enough. Can you feel the energy coming from that person's hand? Right? That's always there, always. And if you can remember that, that helps us. So right now, in your mind, offer a loving kindness, a loving thought to the person on your right. Just offer them a loving kindness in your mind. Offer the person on your left some kind of compassion or loving kindness or a wish for their health and their wellness. I invite you to offer loving kindness for the entire table, something you can wish for everybody at the table. And maybe loving kindness for this entire world, something you wish, want, can offer for this whole world. And now, if your hand is not on your heart, please place either hand on your heart. May I be well. May you all be well. May this world be well. Thank you so much.
Why don't you, if you're comfortable, stay standing? And this is a tradition we do in my spiritual gathering. Extend your hand toward Dr. Lyle Robinson. Just extend your hand and say, "This evening has touched my heart.
This evening has touched my heart.
You are within me now.
You are within me now.
I go with your power."
I go with your power.
Thank you. I've got 2 minutes. First of all, she's given us a gift. The slides will be in an email to you tomorrow for you to use. Look for an Eventbrite email, okay? And you will have the slides so that you may use them as you go. I am really sneaky, and I was listening to a conversation when you all came in. Why don't you take your seat? And here's what one person said to the person sitting next to them. "I sure hope we go deeper tonight." I'm going to look down so I won't look at that person. And here's what I want to say. That the fall series was designed for internal work. Remember I said transformation does not happen out there until it happens in here? So we're practicing the ways to have courageous conversations before we're launched into the practical, real world, complicated, gnarly things that we're facing. We recognize you're ready to go, but we also know we need exactly the kind of tools that Dr. Reeves gave us last month and Dr. Robinson-Lyles gave us this month. So yes, we will launch into the courageous conversations. But to that dear soul that said that, thank you for giving me space to say this now out loud. Here's what I'm curious about. How many of you were here last month? Okay. Did you notice the energy was different in the room tonight? Why? What do you think? More time to each other? What? Why else? No tornado. Other reasons? We're more courageous already. I wonder if we're not beginning to carve out this safe space to exercise together. What a blessing. What a gift. So, beloved, you have some practices. Can you think of a courageous conversation that's awaiting you on your schedule? The car ride home? I don't know. Elaine, that wasn't you and me. I'm not worried about us. I want you in just a moment of silence in your notes to write down one thing you want to try in the next 7 days. What's something you learned tonight that you want to apply, that you want to practice? Write it down. And I'd like to close with this phrase that I'm going to say, and then I'm going to ask you to repeat if you believe it. I'm worthy of my own patience. Ready? Let me say it again. I'm worthy of my own patience.
I'm worthy of my own patience.
Go into the world full of the willingness to pause. Maybe we'll all live.